Welcome, everybody. This session, I'm super excited to have Sarah Dusek. Sarah Dusek is the founder and CEO of, or the managing partner at Enygma Ventures. And Enygma Ventures is a VC fund that invests in women businesses in Southern Africa, in SADC. And Sarah was a co-founder of Under Canvas. So now we know glamping, but the time that she started Under Canvas with Jake, glamping wasn't even a word. Investors were like, what is that? And built that company and exited for over $100 million and decided now that after walking the path as an entrepreneur, realizing that there isn't a lot of education for entrepreneurs and there isn't a lot of support for entrepreneurs, particularly female entrepreneurs in Africa. And they decided to start Enygma Ventures. So I'm super excited to be here. And in terms of introduction for the people who are here for the first time, my name is Sandras Phiri. I'm the CEO and founder of Startup Circles. And Startup Circles is a practical business school for entrepreneurs. So we are a school for the people who don't like school. We are straight to the point. We just teach you what you need, nothing academic, we get things done. And so we have people like Sarah who's going to teach you exactly what you need to learn how to calculate your market size. By the way, Sarah, that was the toughest slide for me when I'm doing the pitch deck. I did an MBA, I did marketing. I asked like, how do I calculate the market size? Do I just make up numbers? What do I do? So super excited that you're here. So Sarah, please take it away. And I will be monitoring the questions and everything that is happening in the chat.
Great. All right. Okay, here we go, guys. Here is going to be the next hour is going to be the most exciting hour of your lives. As Sandra said, I founded a company over a decade ago in 2009 called Under Canvas, and I built this company in the US, and we recreated the African safari experience in America outside of national parks in the US, and we built and sold a company that we started from scratch and sold for over $100 million. And so I'm now an investor, as Sandra said, investing in entrepreneurs in Africa because I believe Africa is an overlooked, under-resourced, amazing place to build incredible companies that could not only change and transform the continent, but could impact the world. And so I'm super excited. I'm here down in Cape Town in South Africa. I'm super excited to have met many of you before. I've heard some of you pitch, but I'm excited today to share some really simple principles of how to attract funding, how to share how investors think about you when you're pitching, how they think about what they're asking and what they're wanting to see when you're pitching and trying to demonstrate your market size. So I'm going to give you some inside tips and inside knowledge today, my secret sauce, if you like, to thinking about market size. Because really, there are some very, very common mistakes that I'm seeing all the time. People make over and over and over again. So that's why we thought it'd be great to talk about this subject and to help you guys understand what venture capital investors are looking for. I consider myself a venture capitalist. A venture capitalist is an investor who, for their job, invests in other companies that are trying to grow and scale. Now, I'm going to preface everything that I'm going to say tonight, though, just with the sense that venture capitalists are not the only types of investors, right? There are impact investors, there are private equity investors, there are debt investors. So venture capital has very specific return metrics and very specific return profiles that they're looking for. I know if I'm putting money into a business, I know that I'm trying to achieve at least a 10 times return on my money that I'm putting into your business. So just bear that in mind. This is one flavor of investment that we're talking about today, one type of capital coming into your business. Definitely not the only kind, one kind, okay? So this is the secret sauce. It's like saying this is a recipe for a cake, a chocolate cake, and these are the ingredients that the chocolate cake needs. Bear in mind, it's not the recipe for carrot cake or vanilla cake or apple cake. This is chocolate cake recipe, folks, okay? So don't try and use the same recipe for different types of funding. This is venture capital funding, private equity type of funding, okay? All right. The whole concept of market size is really an indication of how big you are thinking. So if you turn it on its head and you think this is your moment in the pitch deck to showcase how much potential you think your vision, your idea, your business has. This page, when you're showcasing the addressable market, is about reflecting the potential of your vision. How big you're thinking, how big you think you could be. Now remember, this is different than actually what you think you can achieve in the next couple of years. When you're showcasing the addressable market, is about reflecting the potential of your vision.
Oh, I'm getting feedback.
How big you're thinking, how big you think you could be. Now remember, I'm talking twice, Sandras. Remember, is it just me?
Yeah, I think you're good now.
Okay, that's really weird, hearing yourself speaking twice. The troubles of technology. So it's not so much about what you think is possible right now, what you can imagine that you can achieve in the next couple of years. This is about like really big blue sky thinking. How much potential does this business have? Because remember, you might go the distance with this business for a period of time. Someone else might take the business and then take it on the next leg. You might go the whole leg. We don't know. The idea is, how much potential does the chocolate cake have? How many people can eat the chocolate cake? How scalable could your business really be? So could this business serve hundreds of thousands, millions of people, not just you and your 5 friends? Okay. So we're talking about how much potential for scale is there in your business. So really, when you first point really after sort of thinking about this is the potential of your vision, this is an exercise in positioning yourselves, right? This positioning is really all about selling a dream that is bigger and better than who you are today. It's about how you fit in the existing ecosystem in the world and what you are envisaging you could become. So if I use my own company as an example, Under Canvas, I positioned Under Canvas as the market leader for national park outdoor recreation in the US. I positioned us as we're going to disrupt the hospitality industry. We're going to recreate how people stay and sleep and experience our national parks and how they travel. I communicated we were going to become a household name and that you'd be able to stay with us in every national park across the country. If you're going to visit a national park, come and stay with us, was my message. We are the go-to people to stay with if you want to have the most unique experience of your lives. We're a bridge to the outdoors. That's how I positioned us, which meant I had a clear understanding of how many locations I could build, how many customers I might serve, how many visitors visited national parks on an annual basis across the US. That helped me think about how big my market could be and how many customers I might be able to serve in the US. Now, that's very different, for example, than pitching, I'm building a glamping camp outside of Yellowstone National Park in Montana, which is where we lived, and how we started the business with one location, one camp. So I didn't pitch, I've got one location, one single property. I pitched a big vision to transform the outdoor hospitality industry in the US, which was non-existent, by the way. So I was doing something that no one had ever done before, and showcasing how many customers I could serve and how big of a business I could build. I was imagining servicing millions of customers a year. So we have to be able to dream bigger than where we start. You have to be able to imagine, that's the magic word, imagine how big something actually could be. Now, I know many of us, and especially women, crazy big dreaming doesn't come easy for many of us. We have too many glass ceilings in front of us. Maybe we're too practical with what we can imagine doing. Maybe we've got too many parameters that hold us back. For example, when my children were born, I've got two boys who are 10 and 12 now. So when I started my business, I had babies, right? But I had it in my head, I was supposed to stay home with them because that's what good wives and mothers do. My mother had raised my sister that way, and I thought being the best mother I could be, that meant I had to stay home with them and focus all my attention on my children. And the first couple of years of being a mother, I helped my husband on the side with our business, but I really thought of myself as a stay-at-home mom, and I hated it. I really, really hated it. And I really experienced a crisis of confidence. I struggled to understand, why was I wrestling with being a stay-at-home mom? And my father said something that changed everything for me. A light bulb went on my head, and it was an amazing gift that he gave me, because it totally freed me to be able to think beyond nappy changing and feeding and toddler time and afternoon naps, and it also freed me from the struggle of doing something that I wasn't enjoying and that I was not really appreciating in quite the same way. And he said to me, "Sarah, you weren't educated to stay at home." I was like, okay. It's like, I went to a competitive school. I had a law degree, had a master's degree, and I can still hear him saying in my head, "You weren't educated to be a stay-at-home mom." And all of a sudden, I realized I hadn't acquired all that learning, all that education to not extend myself and not challenge myself. Now, ladies, don't misunderstand me out there. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, you absolutely have my admiration and my support, and you have every right to do that. But realizing I had choice and I didn't have parameters around me that said this is the box that you have to live in was game-changing for me. And it gave me permission to think about my life in different ways and to think about what I could achieve and what I could do. And the truth is that many of us, male and female, feel like we need permission to dream big and permission to do something extraordinary that maybe never has been done before. We need permission to say that's who we are, and maybe we can't wait for someone else to give us permission. We can't rely on maybe our fathers or mothers, our sisters, our mothers or brothers, or our faith institutions or our schools to say to us, "You can do that," or "You could dare to dream that big." We have been living in a world for far too long where women look to men to allow them to do things. And I think even as Africans, we don't expect to lead the world. We don't expect to have revolutionary breakthroughs to come from here. We expect them to come from somewhere else. We expect the best innovations to come out of China or the US or somewhere else. But you know what? If we are going to create a more inclusive and more equal world and a more advanced Africa, then we have to start giving ourselves permission to go for it and make big things happen. Because if only a small percentage of the world is going for it and making big happen, only a small percentage of the world's problems are going to get solved. So we have to start by saying, I'm worthy, I'm capable, I'm educated enough, I'm good enough, I'm as good as my American compatriots and counterparts, And I have a solution to a problem that they don't even know exists. I am good enough to think that I can build a really, really big company. So how do we help ourselves think bigger than we do already? What do we have to do to take off our ceilings, to remove the parameters that we live within and knock down those walls and burst through some ceilings? Because if we do that, what might we imagine for ourselves and our world? I listen to pitches all the time where I hear that the entrepreneur might be able to do $1 million of revenue over a 10-year period. And I'm hearing African entrepreneurs say they might be able to do $1 million of revenue over 10 years. And I say, no. How do you get to $1 million of revenue in your first couple of years, in the first 2 or 3 years, tops? And then how do you get to $100 million in 10 years? These businesses are possible to build in Africa, folks. You literally just have to dream big enough. So that's point number 1. How do you position yourselves? How big can you think? Can you think big enough? Let me give you an example of positioning that might help you think about your market size. I had a pitch last year from a fantastic founder who pitched an idea for a new taxi company that provides taxi services for women by women drivers. So not a new industry. Taxi industry is old, but the revolutionary idea, which was brilliant, by the way, was that she was really selling safety and peace of mind for women. You're much less likely to get murdered or taken down the dark alley and attacked if you get into a woman-driven vehicle than if you're driving with a man. But the mistake that she made with her brilliant idea was that she positioned herself in the marketplace against local taxi operators. She was based in Cape Town, and she said her market size because she was imagining creating a taxi service in Cape Town for women, by women, which was great positioning, for women, by women, and compared herself and said she was going to take a piece of the market in Cape Town. Now, what's wrong with that? Good little business, I hear you say. Great angle on a busy marketplace. She was thinking too small. What she should have done is tell me, I'm building a global taxi service for women, by women, around the world, and I'm starting in Cape Town. There are many, many, many millions of women in the world who use taxis every single day. And in Africa alone, the number is X. I don't know what the number is. She could have told me what it was. But I think I eventually can capture 10% of all woman taxi users. My market size is, ta-da, 5 trillion. I don't know. No idea what it is. But it's this number of people spending this amount a day, and I could think I could serve this many customers a day. So just with one little bit of tweaking in terms of I'm building a global business, or I'm building a business that could serve every African country across the continent, or this could go global, and I'm starting here. It's just, how big can you think? The only difference there is she was thinking small. She's building a local taxi service in Cape Town for Cape Townian women, as opposed to I'm building a taxi service that's starting in Cape Town by women for women that could go global, and we could repeat the model that we build in Cape Town across every major city in Africa or every major city in the world. Just how big you want to think. If you remember that venture capital investors are looking for businesses that could be worth $100 million. That's the magic number, folks. Could you be worth at least $100 million. Just think about that number, because it feels crazy in African terms, right? But actually, it's really not. It just sounds a little crazy, I know, but it's not. All right. If you understand the premise that businesses are valued usually on a multiplier of their net profits. So say, for example, and the multipliers do differ per business and per industry, but usually a 10 times multiplier is really a good baseline to work with. Doesn't work for all industries, but somewhere in there, 10 times your multiplier, which means if your profit was $10 million, you might be worth $100 million to someone else to buy you. Your value might be $100 million. So most companies, right, have a profit margin. You should have a profit margin. So maybe your profit margin is 50%. So maybe revenue-wise, you may be doing $20 million in revenue and you have $10 million of profit. So $20 million of revenue could be enough to one day be worth $100 million. $20 million in revenue is approximately 300,000 Rand, 300 million Rand. Lost a zero there. These are not crazy numbers. They're big numbers, yes, but they're not out of your reach. If you think about enough customers, enough of a market share, a model that could be scaled on a large scale. So here's a thought to really get you guys thinking. Could you build a business that could eventually, over the course of a 5 to 10 year, maybe 15-year period, that could do $8 to $10 million of profit? Write that question down. If you've got a little notebook, write it down. Could you build a company that could do $8 to $10 million in profit? What would that take? Then break it down. This is my back of the napkin envelope approach. How many sales would you have to do? How many markets would you have to be in? How many customers would you need to be doing that much revenue? If you understand what your margins are, maybe they're 50%, maybe they're 30%, maybe they're 80%. Maybe you need to do less revenue than $20 million. How many customers would you need? Could you be that big? Now, often the question is no, the answer is no, we couldn't. But if you just thought slightly differently about the business and just thought, maybe we can make some tweaks, change some revenue streams, open up some different markets, maybe we could, maybe that's possible. Here's another example for you. There's a founder that Startup Circles is working with at the moment. She may even be on this call, but I love her business. She has a fantastic business, great idea. I think it's hugely scalable and therefore investable in, but she hasn't realized its full potential yet. So here's her example. She's an e-services platform for renewing your vehicle licenses. So you can go onto her website or on her app and easily and quickly and electronically renew your vehicle license for one flat fee. Which sounds great, right? Really easy. No more queuing, no more waiting weeks for them to get back to you with the right paperwork. No, all done. One-stop shop for easily renewing your car registration every year. But here's the flaw. Okay, here's the problem with the market size. There are only 12 million cars on the road in South Africa. Which sounds like a lot, right? But you'd have to capture potentially the whole market for every single vehicle owner to use your service to do enough revenue. Now we know, right, it's never possible to capture the whole market, never, right? We can only ever capture a fraction of the market, and how you think about the fraction that you think is reasonable is really a bit of a thumb suck, right? It's like, I don't know. I have to make a guess, and the guess has to feel reasonable. I usually think the guess is probably not more than 10 to 20% of the market, right? If there's 12 million cars on the road, maybe we can service 10% of those car owners, maybe 1.2 million cars of owners that we could eventually convince to use our services to renew their vehicle licenses. So that's not enough, right? It's not enough to think about, could I do $10 million of profit every year if I'm serving 1.2 million customers? Well, no, it's not. It's not. There's not enough margin there, not enough of a fee. The math doesn't work, right? So what do? Do we say, oh, that business doesn't work? No. We see, how can we think bigger about the business? Because the core idea is really good, right? So now she's thinking about other ways to drive other kinds of revenue. She's thinking about fine management for those vehicle owners. She's thinking about other licenses she could add on, TV licenses, liquor licenses. There's millions of kinds of licenses that need to get renewed every year, and it'd be great to do them all in this one app, right? So could she become the one-stop shop for all your license renewal needs? That's how I position it, right? I'm becoming the e-services one-stop shop for all your licensing needs. Now, we know it's not possible right now to renew a TV license online or digitally. It's not possible, doesn't exist yet. But she's saying, I'm going to be the one that makes it possible to do e-services, government services online. That is thinking big. That is thinking, I'm doing something that's not been done before. I'm creating a market that doesn't even exist yet. I'm going to build a big brand that everybody knows about and becomes a household name. And maybe once I've conquered South Africa and we've done every digital service we could do or we could think of in South Africa, maybe we think about Zambia or Zimbabwe or Botswana, or we open up the different regions to see if we could digitize services in those regions too. So can you see where I'm going here? Market size is really connected with your vision for the business. And investors want to see you can think extraordinarily huge. We want to see, can we build companies that could become worth $100 million, right? So when you're pitching, when you're putting your market size in front of us, I'm always sitting here doing back of the envelope math and trying to work out the answer to that question. Could this business be worth that? Wouldn't it be great if you told me it could, because you could show me the maths? And it's really simple, straightforward maths, right? I mean, much harder to do, much easier to sell, right? But if you can think big enough, break it down for me. How many customers is it? How many dollars is it? Where's the revenue coming from? Don't leave us trying to scratch our heads and trying to do the maths quickly whilst you're giving me your 3-minute pitch. You should be completely engaging me in your 3-minute pitch so that I don't have any time to ask any questions, because you've told me the answers to all the questions that I'm going to ask. That's what gets you investment, folks. And that's why this bit is really challenging, because it's really hard to think big. It's hard to think, I don't even know if that's possible yet, right? Some of these things are easier to think about that it's possible to do than others, right? But that's this challenge, right? Is, will you be the people that build our future? Because the future of this continent, ladies and gentlemen, is in your hands. You are the future of what Africa looks like and Africa becomes. And we need you to think big enough to move us forward, to be the change, to go the distance, to make things happen here that are not happening here yet. And that's what people like me want to back. We want to back the future, right? And all you have to do is say, I am the future, back me. And here's the numbers to back it up. You want to leave me thinking, wow, this could be something really big. That's an incredible idea. That's a massive market opportunity. So this is not about executing on the problem that you are solving today. I mean, obviously, it has to be vaguely possible to do what you're selling, but it's about understanding the potential something has. It's about understanding what investors are looking for. And if you can do that, you can overcome the first hurdle. So, dream big. Think about how you position yourself. Don't dream too small. Take the parameters off that you've set around yourself and think about, how could I do 1,000 times more, 10 times more, 100 times more than I'm thinking about today? Because, it's actually not that hard, much harder to do 10 times more and 100 times more than doing 1 times more than you were imagining, right? That's about scale, and it's not about lifting, carrying heavy weight. It's about leveraging your idea to be able to be replicable and buildable on to be able to sell in a much larger way or to a much larger group of people, or service a larger group of people. So do you think you can serve millions of customers? Millions. But we start with 1s and 2s. We start with selling to 5s and 10s and 20s and 30s and 40s, right? Remember, in my first year of operation in Yellowstone, we did something like $300,000, and it was more revenue than I could ever have imagined. It was like unbelievable amounts of money, and I made a teeny tiny bit of profit that year, just about broke even. And I remember thinking, wow, all the ships have come in. This is amazing. But then I had a second thought, which was, wow, this idea works. People want to spend money on my idea. I think we've got something. And you know what? What I think we've got, I think I could do over and over and over and over again. We could replicate this. We could do this in many different places, all over the place. So that's the heart of market size. It's how big can you think? How big can you imagine? And can you demonstrate, I've got something that could be worth one day over $100 million? Because when you do that, people will be falling over themselves to get in on doing a deal with you, because they will see you've got potential, you're thinking about the market right way, and you are the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited to just spend time answering questions for you and trying to help you on this topic, right? Don't ask me anything else about anything else. Let's stay really focused on this topic and keep your questions short, quick. Don't give me 5 years of backstory. Just keep it to the point so that I can give you the answers, right? So we've got time for you to hear the answers and get clarity around the things that I'm saying that don't make sense to you. If there's words that I'm using, language that I'm using that doesn't make sense, tell me, all right? And then we can help you build the future, because you guys are the future. So let's help you build the future that we all want to live in.
This is amazing. There's lots of good comments, people saying this is amazing. Thank you very much for this. And one of the questions that popped up a few times is, when you're talking about profits, are you talking about gross profit or net profit, Sarah?
Oh, okay. So the difference between gross profit and net profit, I am talking about net profit. And net profit is after all your expenses, not just some of your expenses. There's a real term. If we get really technical, the metric that really matters is EBITDA, and that's EBITDA, which stands for earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation and amortization. It's an acronym, right? It's global, it's world standard. It is the metric for how businesses are valued against. And it's very similar to the idea of your net profit. There are some things that you're allowed. You take out your taxes, you take out your interest payments, you take out any depreciation of assets, you take out, what is there, interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. Yeah, so you take out anything else of those kind of things, and you get left with the real number that your business is doing after you've paid all your expenses, all your operating costs, net profit.
Okay, brilliant. There's another question around somebody saying, how do I calculate the market for eggs processing? Maybe details around what eggs processing mean, but let's just give an example for if you're selling eggs, how would they calculate the market size?
Okay. So if you're selling eggs, and maybe let's take one country, right? Say I'm selling eggs in South Africa. You'd have to understand how many eggs are getting bought in South Africa on an annual basis. So you would say, what's the entire market share of egg sales? How many eggs are sold and bought in South Africa today? Should be able to find that information online, right? If you can dig deep enough, you should be able to know all of South Africa generally buys this number of eggs every year, and they generally spend on eggs this amount. So that, as a commodity, eggs are a commodity, right? They are going to have some ceilings. So I would be asking myself, with eggs, just selling a commodity is not going to be as valuable as selling a branded egg product. When you turn a commodity into a branded product, it instantly becomes more expensive to buy, right? Me buying 1 egg or 6 eggs from the grocery store is different than buying a cake that has eggs in, or I don't know, a pre-made omelette, or pancakes, or any other product that uses eggs suddenly becomes more expensive. So there are ways to think about market size, and there are ways to think about, okay, there's a ceiling on how many people buy eggs. What else could we do with eggs that would make eggs more valuable to us? Or how do we take a corner of the egg market that nobody else has got? What's no one doing with eggs that we could do with eggs that someone else might actually pay for? How are you different? Yeah. How could you add value in the egg space? Does that make sense?
Great. Thanks. There's a question around total addressable market, serviceable obtainable market, and serviceable available market. Like, how do you calculate those?
Yeah, I hate those 3 categories myself. The two that are really important to me, right, are you saying to me, the whole market is this big, and I think I could capture this much of the whole pie. It's like having a pie or a cake. We go back to chocolate cake, right? The whole chocolate cake looks like this. So tell me what the whole chocolate cake is, looks like, or has customers, or you can do it. You can do the whole chocolate cake either in number of people, like the car registration phenomenon, for example, was there are 12 million car owners in South Africa. That's one way to say there are that many users. Or there are the registration industry of cars is worth this many rand. Yeah, you can do it in either way: monetary value, user value. But what's really important to me out of that is you say, I think out of that whole cake, I'm going to capture 1 slice. I'm going to capture 10%. I'm going to capture 20%. I'm going to capture 30%. I'm going to capture 5%, 2%, 1%. How do I correlate big picture into small picture? And that you show me, if I capture 10% of the market, it means I can do this much revenue a year. and make this much profit.
Great. Thanks. There's another question from Tapiwa Toto, who's saying, what's the difference between market size and market share?
I think exactly what I just explained. I think market size is the whole cake. Market share is how much of the market you are going to eat and take. That's my one slice or my 2%, 5%. Is that right?
That's right. Yes. And then Georgia is asking, must the idea be new and disruptive or just be able to scale and replicate?
Just be able to scale and replicate. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing new about the taxi industry, right? But you've got to have some kind of new angle. So by women, for women, great new angle, right? And in contrast, you've got the e-registration services. That's not new. It's new in Africa. It's new in South Africa, right? It's not new in the entire world, but it's new and disruptive right here. So there's nothing new under the sun, folks, nothing. And even when I think about my own business, right, I took an idea that was working brilliantly in Africa, the Africa Safari experience, and I recreated it for the American market, right, which was very disruptive and very new and very novel in the US. It's not novel here, right? So we can take things from one place and transform them in another, and they become brand new and they become very disruptive, but they might not be very new in themselves. So I think the way to think about that is scale is much more important than how revolutionary something is. And how big something could be in a market is much more important.
Great. Another question, I think these two questions actually related. More from Mosgrib is asking, how does one manage time between different parts of the world? Does it matter for an investor that your time eventually thin out between different markets? So in this case, I know Mo's context that they supply local companies in South Africa. Now they're in Crate and Barrow in the US. And I think that for a lot of founders, growth and scale means more headaches, less sleep. Like, does it mean we never sleep now? How do we handle scale?
Yeah, nobody can build companies without building great teams, right? So whenever we think about scaling, and that's one of the problems often with ceilings that we create for ourselves, right? We think this is only so much that I can handle. And anytime you say that, and you say we can't do any more, or I can't imagine doing more because I can't physically handle any more than I'm doing right now. And expanding to a whole new market is like, whoa, that's like way too much stress. Nobody scales without building great teams. And people like me are expecting you to not be the bottleneck to your growth. The biggest job of a founder is to think about having enough capital to do your dream, to build the dream, right? To build the dream team to go with you on this journey to execute it, and to have a very clear vision about where you're going. Vision, which is strategy, which is the dream, the right people and the right amount of money to make it happen. So those are the two really critical components. So does time differences matter? No, it shouldn't matter in the slightest, because you have the right group of people surrounding you to manage that and help contend with that. Maybe you need people in the US, maybe you need people who work a late shift and work at night to manage the time difference. So no, it shouldn't matter because you've got to build great teams of great people.
Great. And a question from Katie Shamakamba. Katie has got two businesses. Okay, so I think you talk to both points, but one business is around fish, and another business is microfin, focus on women-led businesses. So the question is, from a VC's point of view, which of these two businesses would you fund? So between microfin and the fish business, and then the talk around founders who are running two businesses.
Founders can't run two businesses and scale them extraordinarily. You can run two, three, four, five, six, half a dozen small businesses and have them all revolve around you. But it's like having little spinning plates, right? If you want to build something big, you can build one thing at a time, big. It is extraordinarily difficult. It is really hard, really time consuming, and it's your life. It becomes part of your life, right? So you can only build one really massive thing at a time. But that's not to say that building a massive thing is right for everyone. And not every business model is able to scale, right? But the question, Sandras, with would I invest in fish, or what was the alternative?
Or microfinance company.
That's microfinance, hands down. Hands down. Commodities are really tough. Unless you turn them into food is really tough because you've got low margins, right? Unless you turn them into a value-added product. Unless I'm manufacturing the product into something else that adds value somehow, creating branded products, I think fish is tough.
Okay. There's a question from Jan. Jan, your question I think has been answered already. Asking about, so Jan is producing a valve for toilets and asking how do you calculate the market size for this? But I think it's the same answer around look at how many toilet valves or how many toilets get sold, and then you calculate backwards from there.
Yeah. So how many toilets do we have in one country, and how many more countries could you sell your same valve to that might buy from you?
Great.
There's a lot of toilets in the world.
Cool. There's a question from Michelle. Michelle, I think it's Michelle from most people as well, said, are there tools or resources we can use to obtain market sizes for various industries in South Africa or other places? And somebody else has also asked a similar, like, apart from statistics, is there any other tools?
Yeah. For me, you really have to just dig deep and use the internet and search, and it's all the information you need will be found somewhere on the internet. Management consulting firms analyze markets all the time, but statistic websites, you need to Google and keep following the thread through Google until you can find the stats that you need. It's all out there. It is.
Great. Chris is asking, any more examples of back of the napkin math for sizing the market that would, the ones that you can present to investors?
In terms of how to present to investors?
Yes.
I love, and not everyone does this, if we deviate from the market sizing page and we think about the page where you can showcase your revenue, I love, not many people do this and more people should, I love you showing me the back of the envelope calculations over the next 5 to 7 years, right? So on the revenue page, you could say, in year 1, we expect to do this much revenue and make this much EBITDA profit. In year 2, we expect to do this. In year 3, we expect to do this. In year 4 and year 5. It's a very simplistic, basic business model that is an extension from your market size, right? So when you've said, we think we can capture this much market share, we think we can say the market's this big, remember the cake's this big, my slice is going to be worth this, turn that number into a revenue number. And maybe it takes 7 years to do that much revenue, or 5 years to capture the whole market. The slice that you're going to eat, it's going to take you 5 years to be able to do the slice that you think, or 10 years or whatever. But 5 to 7 is a really good framework, right? Because we don't want to see that it's going to take you half your life to do what you're saying you're going to do. Show us if you can get there in 5 to 7 years. Say I'm capturing 10% of the 12 million cars on the market. It's going to be this much revenue to the company and this much profit. When you do that, you make it really, really easy for investors to go, wow, yeah, those numbers look good. You've just showed me, wow, I can see your EBITDA. I could see, wow, that company might be worth this in 5 years' time. It's really simple, right? We are not rocket scientists, right? We're just looking to invest in something that we think will make a really outstanding return on our money. And as I said before, venture capital investors are looking to at least make 10 times their money. So if I invest $500,000 in you, my share of the company, I want to see become worth $5 million. All right, that's how this works. So you have to say, my company is going to be worth 100 million. And by that point in time, I'm owning 5% of the company and my share is worth 5 million.
Great. Okay. Great. We still have lots of questions, but I'll pick the questions that are still related to the market sizing, and then I'll pick questions that are clear, straight to the point. If it's too long, I can't read. We can address them in the WhatsApp group and on our page. Bonolo is asking, is it preferable to pitch total addressable market based on the initial market you're targeting, such as the specific country you're starting with, or global potential, if you're ultimately thinking global?
I think there's two ways to look at that. If your addressable market is big enough, and you say, if I service Zambia, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, or Nigeria, Kenya, if you come up with a plan that says, if I service those 3 places and my addressable market, the market share, my slice of the pie is big enough to get there with just doing those 3 things or those 3 countries, great. That's enough. Because then what you also do then is show the market's even bigger than that. And I only need to do this much to become worth that.
Great. Another question from Amin van der Merwe, asking, any consideration for triple bottom line, in particular Planet, or should one rather target impact investors?
No, I think the more sustainable, this is about the future, right? All investors are looking to invest in the future. So the more sustainable, the more better for the planet, the more strings you've got to your bow and be commercially viable is a win. I think if you think the numbers that I'm talking about are too aggressive, and they're really aggressive numbers we're talking about, folks, okay? This is aggressive, building big businesses quickly, utilizing capital as fuel to really grow things really fast. If your business model doesn't quite fit in that, it's still good, right? And it might be good to other kinds of investors and impact investors who are more concerned about social good than profitability, maybe a better fit. For me, I don't think those 2 things are mutually exclusive. I think we should be able to do good and make great returns. And for me, my motivation with seeing both of those things also means that if we can prove that you can do good and make great returns, more money will flow into businesses that do good and make great returns. All right. And that's how we change the world. That's how we change Africa. That's how we move the world forward into a better place. We do good and we make money at the same time. Because that ultimately is what makes the will go around.
Great. I think we'll take we are at the top of the hour of our conversation. We'll take 2 more questions. When defining this is from Emmanuel, and Emmanuel is asking, when defining the market size, should company capacity be considered, or the vision of the company should determine the market size?
Company capacity should not be considered. That's what I call a ceiling, right? That's having a parameter around you that says we can only do this because of how we are today. Scrap it. Don't even think about what your capacity is today. Think about what is the potential. What could we be if money was no object, people was no object? What really could be possible with this idea? And that's vision then. And vision really should determine the capacity, not the other way around.
Brilliant. Yeah, Sarah, I think you've answered almost all the questions that are pertinent to this current conversation. I know other people asking about how you invest, what type of companies invest in. That's a different conversation, which we can answer in another session. Basha, we can answer those questions.
Let me just say, Sandras, that applicants for Enygma Ventures are open right now. So if you are a female entrepreneur servicing the SADC region or doing business in the SADC region, hop on over to our website, which is enygmaventures.com. It's Enygma with a Y, ENYGMA, enygmaventures.com. And on our apply page, you will find an eligibility quiz. And you can fill out the eligibility quiz to see if you might be eligible for funding from us. It should take you about 30 seconds to fill it out. And if you're eligible, it'll allow you to fill out our 3-minute application form. And we'll take a look and see if you are ready for an investment. But for goodness sake, ladies and gentlemen, think big. Don't tell me that you're going to build a business that's going to maybe do $1 million of revenue in 20 years' time. I will not be interested. Okay, I want some big thinkers, big ideas, big problem solvers. I want to back the future builders of Africa.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. And Sarah, in closing, what are your words? What words of encouragement, advice would you have for the entrepreneurs here?
I think don't be afraid to dream big. I know, as I said before, we all have our parameters. We all have our ceilings that hold us back. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, ceilings are to be smashed. Glass ceilings are to be smashed. And if not you, who? If not me, who? It's easy to be intimidated when we think about doing something big. It's easy to think, oh, I'm getting out over my skis. This is above my pay grade. But if not you, who else is going to do it? Who else is going to solve for that? And I know there's no entrepreneur on the planet that ever felt qualified, able, competent to do something big, right? None of us did. None of us do. And nothing can be done until it's done, right? And so what I would say is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to think big. Ask yourself, why am I not thinking bigger? Why am I thinking small? But you know, the reality is when you break big down, we break big down into small, and we take small steps to climb a big mountain, right? And nobody climbs a mountain in one leap. You climb it by taking small steps day after day after day after day after day. And all of a sudden, 10 years later, you've got a company worth $100 million. So it is possible. I am living proof that it is possible. We started our company with nothing. I lived on food stamps in a trailer with 2 children who were babies, with a crazy idea that we could make something happen. And against all odds, ladies and gentlemen, we did it. And I know if I can do it, many of you can too.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much for this. And your story is really inspiring. So I only heard about people talk about food stamps and all of that. Like, food stamps, what's food stamps? And when you share your story, it's really inspiring. And those of you who haven't heard Sarah's story, we have it on our YouTube channel. Look up Startup Circles on YouTube and apply to Enygma Ventures. We posted the link in the chat box. And we've come to the end of this session with Sarah. But before you go and before Sarah goes, please type your key takeaway from today's session. What's the one thing that you learned that inspired, that stood out for you today? Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. This has really been amazing.
My pleasure. Great to be with you.
A lot too.
Brought to you by Startup Circles. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. You keep watching, we keep you informed.